Welcome back to the Arsenal Humans podcast with me, Luce. Today's episode is pretty women's team heavy because obviously the men are on their international break, which I'll touch upon a little bit how their boys are getting on, but we're mostly going to be focusing on the women's Champions League game and WSL game. There's also a lot happening with the stadium, whether that's expanding it or who gets priority over the different stadiums. So we'll touch upon those topics, as well as looking into the future of the next games. Obviously the women are going on to their own international break. The men will be returning, so we'll chat about those games ahead next week. And we're going to open up with a poll about what's the priority this season for Arsenal. Both the men and women, are we looking for the Premier League, the WSL, or are we looking to get that Champions League trophy? Stay tuned this episode. Okay, perfect. I hope everyone's good. Hope everyone's had a good week. I mean, as a Gooner, it's been a pretty decent week, not going to lie. So let's just get into this episode. We're going to focus on the poll. The question that I put out on Instagram to everyone was, would you rather win the league or the Champions League? And I think I just thought of this question because we're at a point in the season where everyone's almost thinking right to the end of the season, whether that's the end of the Champions League or end of the actual Premier League or WSL. We're just looking ahead to, will we actually win a trophy, when it's still really early days, but sort of the league's been shaping itself. I mean, if you're looking at the WSL in particular, Chelsea are unbeaten, which is pretty frustrating, but it's already becoming this dominant field for Chelsea and City. Arsenal just train a little bit behind with United. Even Brighton are up there as well right now. So I think it's just the league's taking shape, both leagues. So it's now getting into our heads, what do we actually want to be focusing on when it comes down to that crunch time later in the season? So it's just a little idea. I kind of thought this would be the voting would be a lot more extreme. Let me say the votes and then I'll say my opinion. So the votes, we had 45 votes, which came to 42% think that the Premier League and the WSL should be our main focus, and that's something that we're prioritising. And then for the Champions League, we got 62 votes, which is 58%. So 42% for the league, 58% for Champions League is what you guys would rather win. And I agree with the popularity being more towards Champions League, because for me personally, I think we've got to win the Champions League. Obviously, the women have done it once, the men haven't done it, so I'd love to do it. I'd love to do it again for the women's, because I think right now Chelsea, City, they are dominating the WSL, and I'm not really seeing at any point they're going to be a downfall for Chelsea. So I'm thinking, what's a way that we can stop them from winning that quadruple? Obviously, we've stopped them the last few years getting any more trophies because of the Conti Cup, because of the League Cup, which we've won a couple times with Jonas Edeval. New manager, I'm hoping we can maybe push for that Champions League, and I think we've got a pretty good chance. I mean, with Slegers in charge and the form we've had, especially against Juventus, obviously I'll talk about those games specifically in a bit, but I think it's just exciting to see that. So for me right now, what would I rather win? I think you'd rather win the Champions League. I know both the WSL and the Premier League we haven't won for a little while now, so it would be really good to get that silverware again. But I think Champions League is just the best club in Europe. You're branching out further than just focusing on domestic English football, which for me is something that I think we need to put our status back out there to be like to other people, to other clubs. Yeah, this is Arsenal, this is what we stand for. For the men, it would be an unreal achievement. It would be amazing to be able to do that. And for the women, to be able to do it again, I think would just show that we are still here, we are still present, and we are still prominent and relevant in today's football game. We might have won it all in the past, but now we are still able to win things of that calibre and of that status right now. So for me, Champions League over Premier League or WSL any day of the week. Unreal if we could do it. I'm getting quite excited because I do think that the women especially have a good chance of getting through to the final stages. I mean, we did it a couple of years ago, and then ACL injuries were just everywhere in all different teams, but especially at Arsenal. We had so many. We had 4 at one point, and that was when we were trying to compete and we were getting further in the Champions League. Then obviously the following year it went completely the opposite way, but this year I'm feeling confident with us, and we've got a new lease of life right now, so I'm really feeling confident. But thank you again to anyone that voted in to that poll. It is good to know that I am agreeing with my followers as well on this, but I'd almost expected it to be 80% Champions League, because I think Champions League is just so much better than the Premier League or the WSL. But maybe that's because I'm a little bit bitter right now, because I think both the Premier League and WSL are out of reach, whereas Champions League, there is still a good chance. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. But talking about Champions League, let's get into the topics as I look at Juventus Arsenal, which was the first game of the week, exactly 1 week ago today. Right, I'm going to start this section off by saying Arsenal women are so back. We're back, baby. I'm so buzzing. 2 games, 2 wins, 7 goals. Not even just a couple here, there. Nah, 7 goals. Crazy. I'm just so happy. I'm so happy. I feel like my little 10, 11-year-old self that used to go to watch Arsenal and when we were dominating the WSL, we were dominating every cup game, we were dominating everything. I feel like I've gone back to that era. I mean, it's been 1 week, so I'm getting a little bit carried away here. But I'm just feeling so good and so confident. It's a completely different team, it feels like. It's the same team. Maybe it's because of the new manager. Maybe it's because it's getting to this stage in the season where people are starting to switch on more because you've got lots of competitions. I don't know. There's so many different reasons why we could be upping it. For me, I do think we've got to stick with the fact that Slegers is now manager, doing an unreal job. No reason why she shouldn't be manager going forwards. I know in her press conferences, post-match, interviews, everything, she's not been too keen or too enthusiastic about having this role, but I feel like she's trying to be humble. She's trying to think, okay, I'm not going to put myself out there just in case, but they haven't really made any suggestions of anyone new. There's been no rumours coming out recently, so I'm thinking if she wants that job, she's got that job and she deserves it. And you know why? Because on Tuesday, we won 4-0 against Juventus. We dominated that game. I thought entering it, my prediction was wrong. I thought 1-0, but I think 1-0 is realistic because it's Juventus at the end of the day. This wasn't an easy game. I'm not entering this week thinking, oh yeah, we're going to win both of these games easy peasy. I thought out of the 2 games, Spurs, easier game. But this start to the week, I think, just set the tone. I mean, Russo completely dominated. She got so many shots off earlier on in the game that I knew that she had to find the net at some point. Also, a player that I've spoken about recently not being at the standard that I think we all expect and that we thought she would be at was Leah Williamson, which sounds crazy me saying that, but I think it's just something I picked out that she just seemed a bit sloppier with her passes and she just didn't seem quite with it. This week, she is so back as well. Arsenal women are back, but so is Leah Williamson. I think the way she was able to pick out the passes, both in the Juventus game, but also in the North London derby, the through balls, she was literally separating the defence by just lobbing the ball over and skimming them, and it would just get through to our attacking players who wanted the ball. We were hungry for it in both games. It was a lot of good football to watch as a Gooner this week, so very impressed. Also, I've mentioned in my notes, and I think it's important to mention out loud, is the Mornham goal, which is one of the best team goals I've seen. It went from Williamson to Mornham to Little to Ford, then back to Mornham to then slot it away perfectly. I think that was the perfect reward for the intensity which happened in the first 35 minutes. It wasn't even that long of the game and we were already dominating the spaces. I mean, Ford basically is just an unreal machine at this point. She's definitely been, for me anyways, and I'm pretty sure social media agrees with me, I've seen a lot of videos about it, Ford has been the best Arsenal women's player this season so far. She's been unreal for us. Blackstenius also with her solo effort coming on, scoring 2-0 in the 74th minute. And then just as you think, okay, a comfortable 2-0 lead, Mariana Caldenti scored in the 80th minute. She had so much time on the ball to actually just switch her foot and then shoot, which shocked me. Because as much as I want to give complete credit to Arsenal here, you know me, the bias is coming through, I was like, okay, maybe actually Juventus should have done a little bit more with that defending. It just felt a bit sloppy, but I mean, we took full advantage of it, and yeah, I'm just so happy with this. Ford then sealed the win just before the final whistle, so deserved. And like I said, she's been so consistent this season, one of the best players on the pitch. So it's just great to see all of these players stepping up on this pitch. It's a big game. It's good to see so many fans going out there. Honestly, wish I wasn't watching it from my bedroom. One day, hopefully this season, I'm gonna get out of my bedroom and watch one of these Champions League games away, because I think they just seem so much fun. But the support seemed great out there. Saw all the photos, especially on Arsenal Women's Supporters group on their Instagram. It looked amazing. So yeah, really, really good game to be at. And another good game was obviously what I've touched upon a little bit before, is the Spurs Arsenal game where Spurs didn't get any goals. Arsenal bagged 3, and obviously that meant that North London remained red. And I went into this game thinking 3-1, which, I mean, I'm not far off. And I thought that one goal that could come from them was because last time we went there, because obviously this weekend WSL was at the main club stadium, which was great to see. And obviously last year when we went there, they won 1-0. So I sort of was thinking, I don't want to get too cocky, too ahead of myself, but I should have, because this week we won 7-0 technically with both the games combined. I just think it's crazy that this intensity from the Juventus game carried straight over into this North London derby, because Russo scored within 2 minutes, which is the second, I think I saw it pretty much everywhere, the second fastest goal that Arsenal women have scored in the WSL. The first one came from Jordan Nobbs back in 2014 against Liverpool, and when I found out that she was the fastest one, I just felt so proud, because she's literally always been my favourite footballer, Jordan Nobbs. I mean, I used to wear number 8 because of her, like when I'd be in my school team or whatever team I was playing in. So I was like, that's pretty cool. A good way to get a legend, of an Arsenal legend, back in the squad by mentioning her. Obviously not back in the squad, she's at Villa, but back in the squad environment, by mentioning her. And obviously it came from Russo's impressive press. I don't think there's any denying that. Spurs' defence was poor. Same with Juventus. I want to give all the credit to Russo. I want to give all the credit to Arsenal. But the defending was so poor. I think the one player for me that stood out is Nilden. Nilden saved Spurs from making it 5-6-0 to Arsenal, because she was constantly pressing, constantly attacking. If anything, I kind of would expect her to give away more fouls because she was constantly pressing. I think Ashley Neville has always been one of those players where she's more hit and miss. Like when she shows up, she really shows up. But I feel like in North London derbies, you have to show. There's no other option. I feel like some of her passes, she was almost recovering a lot. She'd do a poor pass and then have to cover it up. And it wasn't first time, whereas with Nilden, she was first time. Obviously, it wasn't enough because we managed to get a couple more goals. Mornham scored another goal. It was a nice little tap in. Again, poor defending from Spurs. And then the final goal came from Blackstenius. Literally was on the pitch for, I don't even know, probably like a couple minutes. Sort of like Russo vibe at that point. Little one-on-one with the keeper. Obviously slotted it away because someone of that status, and you'd expect someone in the WSL to be scoring that, and obviously she did. And I think it just showed that Slegers' tactics. Hear me out here, actually, what I'm about to say. When I watched the Euros, the 22 Euros, where Wiegman was in charge, obviously still in charge, England manager, and the way she was able to produce the best quality from the Lionesses, I think mostly came down to her rotations. And that was because she would bring on Russo, someone who had that energy and that passion and that willingness to just score goals. She brought her on around the hour mark, as well as a few other subs as well. I know she'd bring on Jill Scott a couple of times and players like that. But then I feel like Slegers almost replicates this because her rotation, her substitutions have been very well timed. And that's something that I think goes it gets overlooked quite a bit. But when you look at this, you just know that she, straight after Blackstenius scored, you just know she was like, that was me. That was all down to me. And she should get full credit for that. Obviously, Blackstenius had to score it, but just her timings with it. Instead of Russo coming on around the hour mark like she did for the Lionesses, Russo came off, Blackstenius came on, and it feels good. Everyone feels like they want to be there. They want to be playing. Their link-ups from the North London derby, I haven't seen that for a while from us. And it just makes me so proud and so happy to be a Gooner. I feel like life has come back into us, and honestly, watching it on the train, it just made the train journey so good. I was next to my friend Abby because we went up to see my friend in Scotland who's at uni there, and on the way back, literally all 3 goals, I was like, oh my god, yes, like proper just cheering. Obviously try not to be too disruptive on this train, but Abby was like, oh my god, what's going on? But I was like, no, we're actually doing really well. Like it felt good to watch us play, and I felt like maybe the start of the season towards the end of last season, we were just giving up. We just weren't really trying. I didn't want to watch. I was almost scared. But then, even when the ball's down this end, there was one save, which was in the 34th minute, that Van Domselaar just tapped over, just knocked it over the bar. And she did that before. When I was at the Emirates, I saw her do that before this season. And it was just so good to see it in such a big game. It's such a high status. I think that was the only real opportunity that Bethany England had in that game on Saturday. And because we just didn't really let her get the ball. She's a great player when she's on the ball and she's good at pressing, but when we had a calm back four, there was no way that you were getting through. So the fact that she had that one chance and then we quickly shut it down because Van Domselaar did that unreal save, I think it just shows that right from the net all the way up until the top players, so whether that's Van Domselaar going all the way up until Russo or Blackstenius, whoever's leading the line, we just know that every player was working hard. And it was just so good to watch. So I'm feeling very, very good as a whole about the two games that have happened. And it's just made me really excited about what's going to happen in the future. Going forwards, obviously, I'll talk more about the predictions, but we've got a little break from the WSL whilst the Lionesses and all the other international teams come together and play. So it means that we can focus just purely on the Champions League and then on their national teams and then come back together. But as a whole, this week has been pretty good to be a Gooner, watching the women get 6 points out of 6 points. Obviously, the men we haven't watched, but 10 Gunners have been representing their respective nations over the last week, and it's good to see that some are being sensible by not playing. We obviously had Rice and Saka along with eight players in total that didn't play in the England squad, which obviously you'd be gutted if you wanted to go to that game because you wanted to see these players, but it makes complete sense because the priority for them, you could tell the game wasn't as big for them. There wasn't as much hype around it, so the focus was on Arsenal or their respective clubs. So it's just really good to see that they're being sensible with that, and I'm hoping that they'll be able to come out of this international break, whether they played or not, fully fit, thinking, okay, come on Arsenal, this is for us. So that is what I'm hoping. There's also been moving away from the actual playing side of the game and focusing on what happens on the pitch. There's also been a few dilemmas that I wanted to touch upon. So the Emirates Stadium is hoping to expand to 80,000 seats, which feels pretty crazy. I mean, that is basically Wembley at this point. It would take it to the highest capacity in the Premier League. And there's so many reasons why this is good, because it would mean that more fans can get in. I know there's struggle for me personally. I've only ever been to one men's game because it's so hard to get the tickets. So then at least you're opening up to another 10-20,000 people that could potentially get into the games, which is really good. And then obviously for the women's game as well, it means that there's more chances to get those sold out stadiums. It could go the other way though, saying that, and almost drown out the team when they're playing if these seats aren't being filled, because I know consistently for most WSL games this season we've had about 30,000. So then if you're extending that even more, then it could look emptier, the stadium. But I think overall that is quite good to build more fan identity, and I think as the game's growing for the women's team as well, this is good that the stadium's growing with it. Might be a jump too far, but this is all just rumours at this point. I don't think anything official has really come out. Obviously, I've looked at the comments and so many people are like, why are we focusing on building more seats? We should be focusing on getting a striker for the men's team, and completely hear that. I also think we should focus on putting more money into the women's team as well, because that would just help the game grow, and if we want to be leading off the pitch, then it might help us lead on the pitch as well. So there's little tweaks that we can make, so that's all just up in the air. But another situation that I want to focus on that involves the Emirates Stadium is that the Women's Champions League game that is meant to take place there on Wednesday, 18th of December, has now been moved to Meadow Park. Don't get me wrong, big up Meadow Park, my favourite stadium because that's where my love for football started. But we had every right to have that stadium. But let me tell you why it's been moved. It's been moved because of the priority of the men's Carabao Cup fixture. We've heard this before. We've been here before. This isn't the first time, and if things don't change, this won't be the last time, and that makes me really upset because we need to be doing better as a whole. We're saying the women's game's growing. Where? Because things like this shouldn't be happening. I mean, they've literally put out a post with a whole essay, it looks like, basically saying we appreciate the members, we thank everyone for their support, and you'll get a full refund on your ticket. I know people that have actually booked hotels and everything around this, supporting the women's team because they think they're going to have a really nice day out, really nice evening at least, at the Emirates Stadium, and then they can make more of a weekend of it or more of a few days little trip. But now it's not even happening, and they might not even be able to go and see it because obviously Meadow Park is a 13th of what the stadium is. It's literally 4,000, I think, maximum. Around 4,000 maximum is Meadow Park, and then the Emirates Stadium is just over 60,000. So it is quite different in capacities, and then I'm thinking who takes priority, and it creates a debate that we shouldn't actually be happening right now. It is really frustrating because I think there's been so much progress made with the women's team and with the women's game as a whole. With the WSL, you're seeing the last weekend, all the games were played at their main club stadium, and then things like this happen, and it's like, okay, you can play at your main club stadium when the men aren't playing there because the men will always take priority, and we need to flip that narrative. We need to change it because the men shouldn't always have priority. If we're looking at Arsenal as Arsenal, which is my aim of this podcast, Arsenal humans, because Arsenal men, Arsenal women, we're all Arsenal humans, then we should be treating every game like that. We should be treating the calendar year as if the teams are equal, because they are equal and they should be treated equally. So, slightly little downer for this episode, dampens the mood a little bit, but I think it's really important that we touch upon this because it's something that I know so many people are upset about. I mean, social media has been absolutely chocker with all of this outrage, and yeah, something needs to change because we've seen this before, and I just really don't want to see this again. So we'll have to see what happens, but that is the end of the topics. Started off on a positive, talking about all the good things that Arsenal women have done on the pitch, but sadly had to end how they're not being treated with the same respect off the pitch because the men take priority. So that is a debate that shouldn't be a debate right now. It should just be the teams are treated equally. But we'll have to see what happens with that. For now, we're going to move on to the predictions and look ahead to the next week of football and what you Gooners, or whoever's watching at home, whether you support Arsenal or not, what you can look forward to if you want to watch Arsenal this week. I feel like this episode's gone quite quick today. I'm not sure if it's because I'm talking a lot, so I'm not even thinking about what I'm saying, but we're already at the predictions part of this episode, and we've got 2 games this week. I feel like we've had 2 games most weeks, even with international breaks, which just feels amazing. It feels amazing to be part of the Champions League, and that is why, linking back to the question right at the very start, Champions League is what we need to win, because I want to keep having these games. These games are so fun. It's getting dark, it's getting wintry. I feel a bit Christmassy as well. And you get to watch your team under the lights at the Emirates Stadium or wherever around the world, and it just feels great. So hopefully we'll keep progressing into this Champions League. Touch wood. Okay, so the first game that we are playing this week is the women's side, which will take on Juventus at home this time in the Champions League. This is happening on Thursday at 8 p.m. Quite a late kickoff, but it's happening at Emirates Stadium, so should be a good game. A little bit chilly, but you know, if you wrap up in the new Arsenal hoodie or all the Arsenal merch, which there's a lot going around, then you know you'll be absolutely fine, snug as a bug in a rug. So you'll be calm. But basically, that was so cringy. I don't know why I even said any of that. But basically, Arsenal Juventus, I'm feeling very good going into this game. And I'm not thinking it's just going to be a 1-0 win, because we're at home this time. So if we can win last week away, we can score 4 goals away, then what can we do home? I don't want us to become complacent. That is one thing that I think both Arsenal men and Arsenal women do, and I think that's been our biggest downfall, because you play the sides that you think are supposedly easier, or maybe you've had a big win before the last time the teams met and you think, okay, no, we've got this. We need to not do that, because I don't want to suddenly just lose it and just throw it away for no reason when we've got the squad and we are feeling very confident. We're coming off the back of a win against the team we're playing against earlier on the week, as well as the weekend where we literally have just won, painted North London red. So I think we're feeling very confident. I'm going to go with a 3-0 win. I don't think it's going to be as high as 4-0, partly because I think the intensity might drop slightly because we're a bit complacent. But I do think we're going to have the Arsenal fans dominating the crowd, dominating an Emirates Stadium, which hopefully has a pretty good attendance. And we're on home soil. We know we can win. We've got the players. So, yeah, I'm predicting a 3-0 win. I mean, there's not really too much else to say on the game. I am just feeling very good about the game as a whole. I think Slegers, as manager, she's just putting me at ease. And I know I'm not the only Arsenal fan that says that. She's just making us all feel very calm with her approach. So we'll have to see what happens. But I will be tuning into that on Thursday at 8 p.m. So make sure you do too, because I'm pretty sure it will be a good high scoring game. I don't think that Juventus will get past up whoever's in the net. And that's actually crazy I'm saying that, because I would usually maybe at the start of the season be like, oh, if Zinsberg was in the net, maybe they might be able to score. But I actually, at this point, I think we've got such a solid back line that we're so on it. Catley, I love what she's doing because she's playing in a position that isn't completely natural to her, but she's just taking on board and she's doing unreal with it. I think Williamson, she's back, she's solid. Ruben Moy, whenever she comes on the pitch, whether she starts, whether she's coming on from the bench, unreal. I just think we've got that sort of, oh, Emily Fox as well. I feel like I'm just going to shout at every single player at this point. But Emily Fox, when she gets the ball, the way she just runs with it, I think it's so nice to have almost a wing back as well in her, but then she covers and makes sure she gets back as well. And it's just great to see. So complete confidence in the girls that they're going to get the 3 points, get the 3 goals. Mark my words, mark my words. Moving on to the later on in the week, because the women are in the international break, which means there's no WSL fixtures. There is actually Man United women, Chelsea women at the weekend, which is Sunday, 11:30. Not really sure why I'm plugging that, but I think it'll be a good game to watch because I'm rooting for United, so that Chelsea drop a few points. Obviously, that will mean that we drop a little bit below United, but I think it'll be an interesting game to see how it shapes the league. Obviously, that was rescheduled from earlier on in the season, so all eyes will be on that, hopefully, which will be good for that game to get the attraction that it deserves, because it is a high profile game at the end of the day. But then on Saturday at 3 p.m, Arsenal will face Forest. Forest will be travelling down to the Emirates Stadium, which fills me with confidence as it is. Everywhere you look, Arsenal are dominating the stats. I think it's about, we should win like 70% or something like that from one of the stats I saw. So I'm feeling confident, but like I said about complacency, we can't get complacent because football is football. Anyone can score. It's about who shows up on that day, and we better show up because we've just come off a little break, and I think this is exactly what we need. I'm going to go with a 3-1 win to Arsenal. Thought of that on the spot, top of my head, if you can tell by the pause of me staring into the distance if you're watching on YouTube. But I'm thinking 3-1. Chris Wood is the only reason why I don't think that we'd be able to keep a clean sheet against Forest. I mean, he has scored 23 goals for Forest. His first goal was literally end of last year. And the record is by Brian Roy. I don't know this off the top of my head. If you're listening on Spotify, I'm looking at my phone currently. Wish I had that sort of knowledge, but sadly not for Forest at least. But yeah, Brian Roy has the record of 24 goals for Forest. So if Chris Wood scores, he will match the top, which is crazy because he's literally been there not long enough, in my opinion, to be getting targets like that, smashing records like that. But it just shows the level that Chris Wood is at. I think he's been able to have the freedom to be able to play the way he has. I know Eddie Howe has come out in post-match interviews recently. I was clipping up at work and I was listening to it quite intensely, just thinking, okay, wow, this is interesting, because he was really hyping up Chris Wood, praising him a lot, saying that he always saw that ability, but at Newcastle he did everything but score goals, is a quote I remember, and that sort of stuck out to me because I was like, okay, he has now come to Forest where he's able to find the net as well as do everything off the ball. So I'm kind of excited to see how that goes for Arsenal. I mean, I have full trust in us that we're going to win. We are the favourites to win. We should be winning this, but you can't rule anyone out. Like I said, football is football. It's about who shows up on the day. So yeah, I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. But I'm thinking if everyone's back in full fitness or back to a good fitness level at least, which there's no reason why they shouldn't be. It's been a good week or two. Some players haven't even played in the international break as well. So I am excited to see how that goes. We could have another week of 2 games, 6 points up for grabs, 6 points taken. And I'd love that. So this is me manifesting it. So I think a 3-0 win for the Juventus game on Thursday for the women, and then a 3-1 win for the men's game on Saturday against Forest. So we'll have to see what happens. Let me know your predictions. Comment down in the description below if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening on Spotify, head over to Instagram. I'll be posting a little reel about this, little sneak peek of what to expect this episode. So let me know what you think is going to happen this week. As an Arsenal fan, how are we feeling? I'm feeling pretty excited, in case you asked, in case you wondered. So we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, that's basically the end of the episode. But I'm going to do a little outro because I'm cool like that. So that's my predictions. Right, okay, that brings me to the end of episode 3 of the Arsenal Humans podcast. Crazy, I've been waffling for 3 episodes now about Arsenal Humans, about Arsenal men's, Arsenal women's, you name it, I've been waffling about it. So if you're enjoying it, stick around. You might as well stick around. They're going to be coming out every Tuesday. I'm going to be posting one exactly this time next week. So my aim is by 8 p.m. every Tuesday. Just depends how work goes, how tired I am, what's going on in life, you know. But my aim is every Tuesday by 8 p.m. So check it out. If you like it, subscribe on YouTube, comment. I'm loving the comments. I'm loving the comments from people that don't actually support Arsenal as well, because that just means even more to me. Can't say that I would do that unless I thought the person was cool, so big up. Or I knew them. If they supported a different team, I think that would be hard to listen to them waffle for like half an hour. But it's interesting always to find out about other clubs. So you know what? I get it. I respect it. And yeah, just keep watching, keep commenting. If you head over to my Instagram or TikTok or both, which is lucechats.sport, then I'll also be chatting about Arsenal. You'll see a bit more about my life and what I get up to, because obviously right now I'm literally just sat here, so you don't know anything about me. So if you want to know a little bit more about me, I post a little bit more on Instagram, a few different reels on TikTok as well. So check them out. But thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode, depending on what platform you're doing it on. And yeah, stay tuned for next Tuesday. Thanks for watching.